Good morning from our studio in Kiev on this Thursday morning. I welcome you all to our AHK Ukraine talk on the labor market, or as we have called it in our title, Workforce Challenges, Retention, Mobilization and Support for Veterans. This is, of course, a very important topic during wartime. Many people are abroad, many Ukrainians, many people have joined the army and had to be replaced or not replaced in companies. There is a widespread shortage, and it is one of the topics that company representatives talk a lot about. I have invited two guests into our studio. Both experts on labor market and HR. We have Ksenia Lotosh, who is the chairwoman of our HR committee. Ksenia is a lawyer with Arzinger, an important law firm here in Kiev. And our second guest is Marta Nechayeva, who is the HR director of Bayer in Ukraine. You are always welcome to ask questions using the chat in Zoom. And Marta, Ksenia, and we have agreed on three topics, as always. Number one topic will be employee turnover during wartime. Number two is workforce mobilization issues. And number three is how to deal with veterans. And we have titled this Guarantees for Employees Who Joined the Military, Veterans and Their Families. Let's get into it. Thank you for being here, Ksenia and Marta. We will always start with a lawyer first, and the practitioner will then add to what has been said. Let's start with the overall topic of employee turnover during wartime. Ksenia, what have we seen since the start of the full-scale invasion?
Yeah, thank you for asking me. Thank you for inviting me to this opportunity to talk. And yeah, we've outlined a few topics, and one of the most important, I guess, is the retention of employees, because what we faced and what companies have faced in Ukraine in recent years is that there is quite a lot of shortage of employees and workforce in Ukraine, caused by many reasons. First, one of them is that a lot of employees have been relocated abroad or to other regions, and some of them have refused, for example, to return back, or they stayed remotely, want to work remotely when the company cannot offer this remote work anymore. So the company needs to either let these people go and find new solutions, or to somehow adjust their processes to keep these employees who left the companies. A lot of employees also left the companies at all. They left Ukrainian companies and went abroad and to seek other opportunities to work there. And also another issue is that mobilization is ongoing, and a lot of male employees have left the companies to serve in the military to protect our country, but their positions, so they are kept for them when they return back in the future, are needed to be filled now. And companies sometimes struggle to do that because there is not a lot of people who are willing to work now in Ukraine due to various reasons. Because first of all, yes, we have a lot of moving inside and outside of the country. So we have a few options what companies try to do in this situation, and what state is trying to do in this situation. So we've had developed some programs for education, for a qualification of people who do not have specific skills, but could fill the positions that are vacant now after they learn.
We're now talking about the law firm, about Arzinger.
We're talking about, I'm getting to set like general what happens in Ukraine. Maybe then I'll speak about our company, and then move to Marta. She'll share her experience. So from legal side and what from general from state, what is offered to companies is requalification of people. Second is maybe getting to hire younger people or people who are retired now. So I've seen it with some of my clients, and I've seen it like general in the market that people and companies start offering more job for younger generation, for example, students. And for those people who have retired but are still able and willing to come back to their previous works, or maybe some other works where they could use their experience. Another issue interesting is that I know we have like gender equality and so on, but still there are some stereotypical approaches that some professions are mostly male professions. But now we've seen like a big move in that, and a lot of women started working in this field. Some employers are even more willing to get women in this field, and we've also seen some even state programs about requalification of women. So I've read before this event some interesting statistics. So like up till today, almost 700 women have participated in state programs for qualification to these professions, for example, like truck driver or something like that. Something that, of course, was always available for women to try to work there, but was mostly avoided for some reasons. But now we've seen this change. And another interesting thing is that we have, yes, I mentioned before, young people started working, and we've seen it even in our companies that we try to offer more work for the students and try to teach them what to do and like grow our own professionals there.
So the students will then be part-time?
They work part-time, full-time, and so on. And we've seen even from the legal side, like recently we had changes in professional education sector legislation, and the new type of agreement, like student work agreement, was introduced where employees can work like part-time while they are still learning something in the university. So it's like a great opportunity for employers to try to use that.
Can you say on a general level, have there been many retired people that have gone back to working?
I'm not sure whether there's a big percent of that, but I've seen some statistic that says that this is one of the it's one part of the solutions what employers can try to do that.
Yeah. Well, draft duty goes to the age of 60,
so
and people.
And
when do people usually retire in Ukraine?
60, at age of 60. Yes.
So
it's
at a point in life in which they are usually still healthy enough to actually contribute to the workforce. What does it look like from your side, from Bayer's side?
So yes, I should admit that we are facing really lack of resources on the market, like our peers companies, and we understand this. But I think that it would be fair to say that it's not across all positions or across all categories of employees. Of course, the first issue is that people were evacuated and they don't want to return. And for example, we face this in finance and accounting, that we as an international company require people to know English, to know international standards, and people can, I cannot say easily, but they can find the job, for example, in Poland, where a lot of shared service centers, they don't want to return. And now we really face that we cannot replace it easy in Ukraine. There are people who are abroad and they are ready to work for a company in Ukraine, but they would like to work distantly. And in Bayer, we really insist and want and promote that all our employees are in Ukraine, because they are servicing Ukraine, and this is engagement also and motivation for all others who are here. So we should feel like we are one team. That's why, of course, we would like people to be in Ukraine. We are not looking for hiring somebody who is abroad and, for example, 90% there and 10% here. We would like people to come to the office at least 1-2 times per week.
You have there's no one left who works for Bayer from Poland or Germany?
We still have maximum, I think, 5 people, but they are not reporting line. It's not to Ukraine so far, but we are not hiring new people. There is specific, let's say, structure, this matrix structure, so people are reporting to headquarters, but the rest, like Salesforce, etc., we returned. If people didn't want to return, of course, we temporarily terminate them, or they take decision to terminate forever and find their lives there. So yes, the rest employees who are working for Ukrainian organization have reporting like here, they should be in Ukraine. And our managers prefer to see them in the office, as I mentioned, 1-2 times per week, and to be in contact with them. Also, there is a third category, like, for example, we have in the plant seasonal workers who are quite hard to hire because they are mainly men, and we cannot protect them to reserve them from mobilization, so they prefer not to be hired at all. Or they are like, because the documents are not correct, or if we will hire them, they will be visible immediately for military organs, so it's hard to hire people sometimes. Yes, so with mentioning this, it's becoming quite hard and challenging for our managers and for HR definitely to retain current talent at least and to attract new one, to be like employer of choice on the market. So we all the time should find new solution, analyze the market, what peers companies are doing, what we invent something new to attract talents, to keep them and to find resources. And as well, we noticed that there are a lot of people who became during the war quite loyal to the company. They feel like safety and security there. They know what to expect, and it's not that easy to headhunt. So this is, I would say, those four categories which impact.
So is it fair to say that for blue collar workers, it is harder for you?
Yes, during this
with
season,
regard and as compared to white collar.
Yes, yes. But we cannot say that for white collars.
Yeah, I mean, well, I have the impression that it is pretty hard to get English speaking or rather German speaking staff in Kiev at the moment.
Yes, but it's not only the main issue, but yes.
And there's also, of course, the price issue. The price for labor is going up significantly, isn't it?
It is, because we have inflation actually. If there is good, let's say, good quality resource, definitely, and it's big demand.
Well, it's natural. It's just a market economy. Yeah, there is a shortage, so prices are going up. Let's move over to the next issue: workforce mobilization issues. Ksenia, what is the legal basis here? What are the rules and laws with regard to this?
Yes, we have military situation due to wars that we have. The legal background is that most men aged from 25 to 60 can be drafted to military service unless they have some kind of deferment from mobilization, one of which is, for example, reservation by the company, by the employer. People work where they work. But these opportunities are limited and not every employer can use them to reserve employees, and even if they can, most cases it is limited by 50% of men who are eligible for military service. So companies cannot give this guarantee to all employees. And even so, the company, to be able to do that, should correspond to specific criteria and get specific status from one of the authorities, for example, one of the ministries. And what we've seen with time, that the legislation changes like very fast in this field, and like at any moment we can get a new regulation, new limitation, and so on. For example, in the beginning, when we had this mechanism of reservation established, with the quota for reservation of employees were counted, including women who have military professions and military background but still working at the companies, and other employees who are reserved by another place of work. But now these categories were excluded, so it like shortens a little bit, even sometimes significantly, the quota that company can use. And also, not speaking about this, but speaking about the criteria, general criteria that company has to meet. There are some list of general criteria established by Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, but there are also additional criteria by each specific ministry or each specific authority that.
So when you are in energy, you have to deal with Ministry of Energy, and then they have their own rules.
For example, trade or something like this. So you deal with Ministry of Economy, and each this ministry or authority has its own criteria, and they can change them at any moment. So what we've seen, like recently, Ministry of Economy significantly cut their criteria, and some of the most popular, like additional salary criteria, was cut out. So a lot of companies who had obtained status based on it cannot use it for prolongation of their status anymore. So the status is given for 1 year, and once this year is over, the company will have to look for other opportunities, or will not have opportunity to reserve employees at all.
I think we're also seeing that bureaucracy is a bit stretched here. Yes, that we see that processing times at the ministries is very long and too long, and then companies are waiting, and that they can then get into situations that are not secure.
Yes, it happens. Unfortunately, even so, we have like a legislative deadline for this, like 10 business days for the ministry or another authority to review your application and provide you with status or refusal. Unfortunately, a lot of ministers pass this deadline like very much, like 1 or 2 months even. So it's very hard, and sometimes even if you have already status and you try to apply for a new one for another year, you can miss this you can be in a situation where your critical status already has ended, but you have not got a new one. So, and the employees can be drafted at that moment.
That's a common issue we see, and the companies will then, of course, also ask us, and we send letters to the ministry saying that we think the company meets the criteria and the deadline has passed. So the 10 days is more a theoretical time of processing. I imagine that takes up a lot of your time at the HR department at a company, also dealing with these issues.
Yeah. What about receiving this criticality? Of course, there are a lot of work from lawyers and from our JAR team managers. So definitely they are focused a lot. We are happy that we have this currently, and we have possibility to reserve people, and like 50%, and our quota is fully occupied and spent. But unfortunately, there are still people who are in the list, and now this military counting becoming more and more tough, more and more, on one hand, transparent, because you are all the time in the contact with military officers, checking, etc. But definitely it's becoming tough. They are sending to company request to send people for, they're saying document check, but then it could be mobilization finally. Of course, people receive personally to home address these invitations, and the third, of course, on the roads. As you know, people are stopped and could be requested. Sometimes just receive tickets, sometimes immediately from the car and are taken to the office. And this is really, let's say, not very good story. And sometimes you should check where the employee is, what happened, etc. Well, and of course, it's not easy then to replace, to find the solution, and so on. But of course, additionally to the quota of reservation of employees, there is possibility. There are some people who are studying, of course, and they are protecting. There are a list where people are protected themselves. Somebody have big families, a lot of kids, yes, and so on. So definitely, we cannot say that just 50 are reserved and the rest 50% are open to be mobilized.
And how are companies dealing with this phenomenon that people are actually hiding at home, that they don't want to go out, that they don't want to sign a contract? Is freelancing an issue here for companies? I mean, that they hire people but not have them on the payroll.
It's kind of hard. What I've seen from practice, and but this is not really the safest solution, that the issue is that the employer has to report the employee every change about employees' data and so on, about hiring, dismissal and so on, to military office. And to avoid this, some companies and employees choose to do service contracts instead of employment, because in this case there is no reporting obligation. But it doesn't protect employee from getting any notice from military office at home, the place they live, or at the street and so on. In other cases, for example, if company have not been reporting at all before the war started and continue not to do that, even so in violation of the rules, some employees work remotely and they just do not leave their home. Sometimes happens, but it is a big problem for the companies who try to work openly and who need employees on place, not only at home. There are also cases that when employees, for example, left Ukraine at all, even before war or after that somehow, and they are militarily liable, but they stay abroad and just probably will never come back, because there could be some liability for them once they come back and they do not have any deferment or anything like this. So this is, yes, quite a problem. But as we mentioned, this reservation is not the only opportunity. There could be deferment based on other grounds. For example, yes, 3 or more children dependent on the person, or if person cares for a sick relative or close relative, or has any other solution like that.
Okay.
So a lot of companies have that employees with these other deferments, but some do not.
But we were talking, I got to think of another issue that is also related to mobilization and HR's issue, that's traveling abroad, which is basically, which is of course a problem. People need special permission to leave the country, and that is of course crucial in many companies, that they get people abroad for training or other purposes. How is this developing? How easy is it for companies to get people out of the country for special purposes?
Yes, if we're speaking about men here, because women can really travel abroad, but about men, if they are not on military register, for example, they're excluded for medical reasons, or if they have any deferment grounds that allows them to leave Ukraine, they can do that. They can go on business trip, but so on. But usually you would need a big package of documents confirming that you really work somewhere, you're really going on the business trip, and you're really going to come back to Ukraine.
And it is really necessary that you go.
You need to prepare all these documents, and but even still, if you, for example, reject, you have traveled even before, and you have all the documents confirming that you work, and that employer says that you will really come back, still officer at the border can decide not to let you go. Just sometimes these situations happen, so it's always
you have
all the officer who
you have met all the criteria, you have all the paperwork,
but you still make
50 pages or 100, and then you get to the border and the officer will refuse, because
yes, it happens.
this is the order of the day.
But I've seen if person has traveled and came back in time before the business trip ended, or at the end of the business trip once or twice, so usually after that they have no problems traveling, because inspectors on the border, they check that you've been traveling and you've been coming back, so probably you will come back again.
Sounds plausible. Let's move on to number 3. We have another 9 minutes left, and usually at this time we tend to see questions on the screen. No questions yet, but please feel free to post them. Of course, the military, the veterans, that's a huge issue. We all know this. I'm always in or frequently in touch with our staff member who serves in the army, and that goes for all the companies. What is the situation like? How do companies deal with these issues? And well, let's start with the legal base again here, Ksenia.
Yes, so to give the background, when a person gets drafted to military or goes to military voluntarily, employer has to retain their workplace, but the employers are not obliged to keep the payments. Before the middle of 2022, these payments were mandatory, so the salary would be kept for the employee and paid to him or her while they are in the army. After that, this legislation changed, but what we've seen in practice, a lot of companies still continue to pay that, even so this is not legislation not mandatory for them. Some retain like one salary, average salary, 1 monthly salary for each month. Some do a slightly lower payments, some do higher payments, some do, like, for example, one-time payments. So there are opportunities, and it's up to the employer to decide whatever they can offer. What I've seen, some companies do even have such kinds of provisions in their collective bargaining agreements. So it's something new that we've seen, that, for example, trade unions try to negotiate with employers to give specific additional guarantees to veterans and to people who are in the military now, or even their families. Another issue is that when a person comes back to work, it's hard to adapt for them, and there are not mandatory programs for employers to do something with this and to help person adjust to work, but a lot of employers try to do that. There are a lot of volunteer programs and state programs for requalification of veterans, for example, for giving them other opportunities to learn some new skills, to learn some new professions, and even to open their own business. So there are like state grants for veterans to open their businesses. So it's very good to have these opportunities. And what we've seen also, that more and more companies, they are being open to hiring specifically veterans and give preferences to veterans over other candidates. And another issue interesting that I've seen, that most of recruiting agencies, recruiting websites, for example, the most famous that we have in Ukraine, they have like separate web page on their website specifically designed for veterans to find a job. So it's very good that we have this.
A question about the contract. Is it technically suspended, the work contract, while the person is serves in the military?
Yes, they are released from their employment duties, so they kind of like on payroll, but they are not paid unless the employer decides to pay them. So they're not working.
There's 0, but the person is seen to be
employment of the staff. Yes.
It is a staff member?
Yes, it's part of the staff, but it's not getting paid unless the company decides to pay. And you can replace this position temporarily with another employee. And once it would be like fixed term agreement until the person comes back.
Okay, Marta, what's
Yes.
how do you at Bayer deal with your staff? How many do you have that serve in the army, and how do you deal with them?
So as of beginning of the war, we have 50 people who were mobilized. There's mix. Most of them were mobilized, but there are a few who went voluntary or this territory defense stuff, etc. And I'm really proud to say that we try to support a lot those people. When the person is going to military, we give one-time financial support. The person can organize himself and family what is needed. We never know what it could be, but generally, so of course, person is like Ksenia mentioned, is on hold, temporarily terminated, but it's in the organization, it's existing, and when we'll return, definitely will receive the job. For the time being, of course, manager can either redistribute responsibilities or hire temporary somebody. But still, we continue to pay financial support, which is on the size of monthly salary with which employee was mobilized. We continue to.
Are you topping it up then to the level that the person had? Is that what you're doing? Well, the person usually also gets a salary in the army.
Yes, but it's very a lot. There are a lot of speculation around this, what they receive there. That's why we don't want to understand. No, to go. It's not.
You're not going into this. You just pay the salary.
This salary was the last one you had. You receive this as a financial support monthly. We are not changing. We are not increasing. No merit increase, but till the person return. And as well, we took decision with our board members to leave medical insurance, because we had found that, yes, if something happened on the active war, definitely they receive good support in hospitals. But if the person has, I don't know, whatever, flu, toothache, etc., it will not be supported. That's why we took decision to continue to have this medical insurance. Person can be on vacation and use it. That's really needed. And of course, we always remember, try to make some gifts, for example, like for the 1st of October, etc., and be in radar with them. And they know that we are waiting, they return to us as soon as possible. We have demobilized people, definitely. They received already their job. They are working as part of the team. We cannot say that we are doing any specific programs for them, like of integration, but we trained our leaders, managers, how to dialogue, how to integrate those people. So we did some trainings for organization to understand how it works and how to help those people to, again, assimilate to the team. And as well, we have psychological support line. If person need, definitely can use it. So this is something we currently are doing for our people.
I can see that we are answering all the questions that might be beforehand. Oh, there is something about student contracts is the question by Michaela. What do they look like? There's not more than this. Can you say details about students' contracts?
Yeah, it's something new that we had. It's not very broad description. There is no broad description in the labor code now about this, but the idea is that you can get a student with a fixed term agreement for the period they are studying, and you can get them for the profession they're studying for. So this is the basic idea. We think that maybe a little bit in the future we'll have like model agreement for that, but it's still good to have this, because previously, of course, students would be hired, would be working, but that would be like open-ended contract, and sometimes employers would be afraid to a little bit cautious on hiring them. So now it's a fixed term agreement, and employers sure that if they are not working very well, so they could terminate them once the agreement is expired. So but it's still a big progress that we had, because we've had the idea of getting student agreements, like training agreements and so on, but it was postponed a lot of times for now. So this is agreement specifically for students. We of course have idea of getting trainee agreements that would be also similar, but very short term, for up to 6 months. But this idea have not realized yet, so we're just waiting.
Approaching the 30-minute, but I have one question left that just comes to me. Mental health issues, that's of course a very big issue. What is the standard here in the market within companies? How to deal with this for the workforce that is there?
A lot of companies hire like psychologists, like outside psychologists, or get some sort of arrangement with medical insurance that the employee can get psychological help. Sometimes we have, for example, in our company, we have some periodically we have some kind of webinar about some specific topic about the burnout or how to deal with some specific crisis, and some professional psychologists would tell with some tips and something like this. So it's available.
To do this.
We are providing lectures, psychological support, different types of lectures from the beginning of the war: how to survive, how to help yourself, how to help family, etc. And definitely we have medical insurance where people can use psychologists for therapy if needed, of course.
Yeah, we have approached the 30 minutes, but I take one more question here, a question to the practitioner. Do you have successful cases when reserved employees go abroad with vacation purposes? They go on holiday, can they leave the country?
Yes, yes, they can. If they are reserved, they have documents. They receive, maybe they sometimes need some special letter from employer, but yes, they can go return.
Yeah, I've seen this from some of our clients that they asked us if it's possible, and then their employees went on vacation, came back, so it's possible.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, thank you to you both for a very packed 30 minutes. I think we managed to get across lots of information to the audience. Thank you for being with us there, mostly from Germany. And please remember, when we close this down, you can leave us feedback, you can tell us how we did, and you can also make suggestions for a next AHK Ukraine talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.